It's Thursday, which means it's time once again for the best movie podcast ever. That's right, it's the only movie podcast that offers completely objective and hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am the podcaster with no name. I'm your host. I'm Konrad, and he has been snapping necks and cashing checks. It's Anthony James.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night.
There he is. How are you doing, Anthony?
Doing very well. Sort of currently going through the toilet training, but that's
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I could do with some of that myself.
Well, it's not for me. I should point out, it's not for me. It's for my
little bit of blue humor there, folks, to get you settled into the mood.
Yeah, 2.5-year-old son. And don't ask me how it's going. Let's just say there's been 1 or 2 dining room tables disinfected. That's all I'll say.
Listen, you can't make an omelette without breaking a few pissy eggs.
That's all.
Did you enjoy my? I actually don't know if you've seen it, but did you enjoy my Step Brothers movie reference for you in the intro this week? Because I threw it in there deliberately for your benefit.
I'm going to be completely honest. I wasn't listening.
You hear this? You see the kind of shit I need to put up with?
Tell me it again.
I said he's been snapping necks and cashing checks, which is a line from the hilarious Will Ferrell movie, Step Brothers, which everyone should see. Yeah. Honestly.
The fucking Catalina wine mixer.
Yeah. Will Ferrell, he's on the downward like end of his career, but he churned out some good stuff in the last 20 years. Yeah. Right, before we get too far off track, if you're new, this is going to be a movie diary where we talk about all the movies we've seen since the last time we did one of these, which was a couple of weeks ago, because last week we did our incredibly, what's the word I'm looking for here? Prescient, I guess. Like, it was relevant movie presidents episode. Yep. But yeah, we're doing a movie diary this week, so we're going to discuss what we have seen, and we're also going to do one of those next week. So if you enjoy this, check us out then as well. Please subscribe to the podcast on podcasting apps, or on all the good ones, or on YouTube, if that is your preferred means of viewing/listening.
The Culture Cave.
Yeah, the Culture Cave. That's the name of the channel. That'd be helpful for you to know. And other than that, like the video, subscribe, get chatting in the comments about what you've seen this week and what you think of the movies we recommend. But otherwise, I reckon it's time to talk about some movies. What do you reckon, Anthony?
Yes, I want to do that.
Excellent. Let's do that then. Movies. That's what we're here to talk about. How many have you seen since we last spoke on this topic?
I have seen. Now I'm gonna impress you here. It's not your 9. It's not your 9 from the other week, but it's 4. I've managed to watch 4 relevant films to a movie podcast that aren't... Again, I've watched at least 25 Disney films, but we're not going to count those. If I ever watch one I want to talk about, like on a podcast, I will mention it. Like I mentioned Soul a few weeks ago.
Yeah. No, I mean, we subscribed to Disney Plus this month because... What did we want to watch? We watched something. No, I haven't even started watching Mandalorian yet, actually. There was another thing I wanted to watch. Oh, I know what I like. It'll come up later, listeners. You just stay put.
We subscribed. Starring Dennis Quaid.
Yeah, Field of Dreams. Is that even Disney? I don't know. No. So we subscribed to Disney Plus, and there's plenty I'm not going to talk about today that I've just had on in the background. I could talk about a lot of The Simpsons because I've watched a lot of that as well. Turns out The Simpsons is still really funny. Yeah.
What can we say except you're welcome?
That's excellent. I watched that. I definitely watched that. That's a good movie.
Yeah.
I knew it. I watched. Sorry, listeners. This is going to be a brief tangent into Conrad's home life that you're not going to be interested in, and it's not going to entertain you. But just bear with me for 1 second. I watched Moana with my 2 German, I guess they were kind of technically nieces. There were 2 and 3. And that was the point at which I kind of realized my level for German speaking because they were above me in German speaking. So I was saying things like, hey, ist ein Dummkopf and stuff like that. And they found that hilarious. So I was like, all right, I can entertain children when speaking German. So I've got that. Take that one off. But that's the level I'm conversing at in German, unfortunately, which will mean nothing to anyone who listens to this podcast but doesn't listen to our other podcast, the After Dark podcast.
Which we just covered a German show. Having said that, I don't know any other languages, any way at all. And I still know the words to Moana in English, and I impress myself all the time.
You can speak Australian.
That's actually when I first moved to Ireland on my first day of school. 3 or 4 different kids when I was like 12. 3 or 4 different kids said to me, "How did you learn English?" They thought I spoke Australian, like in Australia.
Crikey. Movies. That's what we're here to talk about. Just to reiterate that, just in case anyone's tuned this out already. I've seen 6. So, I reckon you said you've seen 4.
Yeah, we got an average of 5.
How's this going to work? Okay, well, I tell you what. I've just talked for quite a bit, so why don't you do 1, and then I'll do 2, and then you do 1, and I'll do 2, and then we'll go back and forth.
That sounds good to me. So I'll start off with one that I sort of teased last week. I said it was my favorite movie last week, and I at this point I watched this about a week and a half ago because of our President's episode. I didn't get a chance to talk about it yet, and that is Rock the Casbah, 2015's Rock the Casbah, directed by Barry Levinson, starring Bill Murray.
Excellent.
Yeah, have you heard of this? Have you seen this?
No, I've never even heard of this movie, to be honest. So you're gonna have to guide me through this experience.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, this is it's kind of one of those weird films where the writer was inspired by a real life story, but then wrote like the main character from the real life story becomes a B character, and they write the real life story from the perspective of a different new character. And I'll explain what I mean. So in real life, there was I can't remember the woman's name, and if I could remember it, I'm sure I would mispronounce it because it's an Afghan woman who basically became the first contestant, a woman to go on TV and sing and dance. And she went on a TV show called Afghan Star, and she sang and danced on it. Now the songs she sang, I think, were traditional Afghan songs, so I didn't actually know them. Having said that, in the film, so what they've done, that's the true story, and it was very inspiring to a lot of Middle Eastern women. This idea of this woman going on dancing and singing, it sort of liberated their minds a lot. So basically, the film Rock the Casbah, written by Mitch Glazer, what Mitch Glazer's done in the script is he's created a down on his luck manager of singers, and I think it's just singers that he manages, called Richie Lands, played by Bill Murray. And basically, what he used to be the manager of Madonna in the show, in the film and all, and he goes over to Afghanistan. He's sort of down on his luck, but Zoe Deschanel is one of his clients, and there's a fellow who organizes the trips around all the U.S. military bases in Afghanistan for singers and things to go and entertain the troops, and he enlists her to go out there, and so they go out to Afghanistan. There's a lot of comedy that ensues from that, but while he's out there, he actually discovers an Afghan woman singing in a cave called Salima, and she's played by an actress who I've never seen before, but called Leem Lubani, and she was very, very good in it. But basically, Leem Lubani, this character Salima, is the parallel to the real life woman who went on Afghan Star.
Okay, yeah.
Now, unlike the real life film, real life story, this one has the Afghan woman singing Western songs, maybe to make it more palatable to the Western audience. I'm not sure, but it's sort of a comedy film with moments of. It's a comedy film. Let's be honest. I'm trying to think about what it is. I think it's billed as a comedy war film because basically.
Does it? Sorry, go on.
I was going to say basically he goes out. He's in sort of the war-torn Afghanistan. There's a lot and
natural fodder for comedy.
Actually I forgot to tell you, one of the main characters is Bruce Willis as well.
Right.
And Bruce
is
Willis,
he like a brigadier? They don't have brigadier generals in the U.S. Army. Is he like some kind of major, like a high-ranking army officer?
No, he plays sort of like a loose cannon military guy who actually seems to not really be in the military anymore, and he sort of he just I don't know, he sort of helps them by like being protection when they go places and stuff.
He's like CIA or something.
I don't know what he is, but he's called Bombay Brian, and he's a bit of a ruffian, and he sort of spends the night with Zoe Deschanel. He's sort of hit the little love interest for her at the beginning of the film. He's sort of he's a real mystery, this Bombay Brian. But basically, Bill Murray gets caught up in like local like sort of village wars between warlords and villagers in Afghanistan. it's full of comedy hijinks.
Yeah, again, that sounds like naturally funny situation in which to find oneself.
Real fish. It's a fish out of water comedy, basically. And I would recommend it. Like, there was definitely like, it was a little bit predictable. It was a little bit by rote in terms of the structure of it. But overall, Bill Murray gives a fantastic performance in it, and it's different. It's different in terms of the films coming out these days. With the fact that they put Bill Murray in it, it is different than what a comedy film you would go to see with sort of the latest big star like Will Ferrell, whatever.
When you were describing it to me, a sort of a Bill Murray in a kind of fish out of water, failed elderly white man in a country he doesn't understand encountering an enchanting young girl, or young woman, excuse me, it put me immediately in mind of Lost in Translation. And I've just had a look at Mitch Glazer, and it's quite funny. He was a producer on Lost in Translation. So does it have any of that kind of that? I'm not really sure what. There's a certain kind of fantasy and romance to Lost in Translation that makes it really charming. Does this have any of that?
No, this is very much in the style of a comedy, but it's sort of shot a little bit. It's like they've taken some of the color out. I mean, it's sort of a little bit independent-y, but not. It's not because of the cast and everything. But the way it's shot and the grading of it is quite stark, and it builds an interesting world of Afghanistan actually in this war-torn time. Like all the Americans who they're actually driving around the city at night when they're not supposed to be out. And like driving past these ruined buildings on the way to a nightclub, you know what I mean? And they go into they go like through Afghan military checkpoints and stuff, and they're going into into the nightclub. Kate Hudson's in it; she plays a prostitute.
Okay.
It's actually that's what I mentioned earlier last week. This film reminded me of I don't even want to call it. It's not really a trope. It's actually more of a poison within the industry, and that's casting women who are like 40 years younger than the male lead, as the love interest. It gets me, but the thing is, in this film, it's actually maybe okay because she's they never actually end up. I don't think it's actual romance. She's like a prostitute they sort of do things together. I don't know if it's not a romantic film.
As you would with a prostitute.
Yeah, it's not just that type of thing though. They sort of go into business together or so, or whatever you say. It is a film that has been critically panned, I will say. It's
okay.
It's not. It didn't hit well at the in terms of the. It didn't get it
critical response.
No, not very high critical response. Having said that, it was good fun. I just randomly put it on Amazon Prime. I'd never heard of it before I put it on. I'm going to be honest with you. Not very often am I searching through a streaming service and see something I've never heard of before and just go, let's give it a go. And this was that. I will say, the film, I can't remember what you call it, with Jonah Hill, like War Dogs or something like that?
Yeah, Lords of War?
Something like that.
The one with Nicolas Cage?
No,
War Dogs. The one with Jared Leto you're thinking of, right?
Jared Leto? I'm not sure if Jared Leto...
Wait, no, I'm thinking the one with the arms dealers that, like, Jared Leto's in it.
Is Jared Leto in that? I'm thinking of... Well, it's Jonah Hill anyway. I'm thinking of Jonah Hill, but...
I might be conflating two movies here.
Oh, you might be. Okay. So basically, Danny McBride is in Rock the Casbah, and he plays a character that's similar to Jonah Hill and his mate in War Dogs, who they've sort of just got involved in this arms dealing and getting a lot of money from government contracts based, but they're taking Bill Murray around this Afghani city, and it's just probably the funniest moment of the film for me is that they're in this like convertible driving around and they get stopped by the like this checkpoint, and they've got guns holding at them. And Bill Murray's like stands up in the middle of the car. He's a bit drunk, and he's like trying to plead with them, like, I'm Richie Lance. I was the manager to Madonna, right? And he's like going like this, and then like the guys just having none of it. Like there's a lot of straight man or like sort of Afghan men not taking any crap up against Bill Murray comedy in this show. So it's worth watching. Don't expect to walk away thinking that was the best film I ever saw, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah. That movie was War Dogs. Just to clarify, it was the last movie Todd Phillips directed before Joker. I didn't know Todd Phillips directed War Dogs, and Miles Teller is the other person.
I think I did know that whenever Joker came out, and I did the whole look into it. I wasn't that big of, and Joker will come back later actually. Not. I didn't watch Joker, but it will come back thematically in this podcast. But I'm gonna be honest. I wasn't that big of a Hangover fan. I'm just gonna be honest.
Okay. They're okay.
They were okay. So well, I'll just put it this way. I'm gonna wait and see how Todd Phillips does with his next film before judging whether he's a good director or not.
It'll probably be Joker 2 by the looks of things. So
Yeah,
we
true.
shall see. Right. Okay. So I'm gonna start things off with. I think I said I was going to do two of mine. We'll do two. We'll see how it pans out. I'm not a mathematician. So I'm going to start things off with two movies that I absolutely loved. One was a movie that came out, I think it came out actually, or it released at festivals in January 2019, and then it just kind of languished in distribution hell for a long time. But I think it was eventually picked up by Amazon to be released last year, and I completely missed it. And actually, it was quite annoying that I watched it this week because I watched it shortly after my Best of 2020 video came out, and I was immediately like, "Shit, this should have been in there."
But does that count as 2020 if it came out in 2019 in festivals?
Well, a festival, I don't count festivals as a release because it's not a theatrical release.
Yeah,
but that is The Vast of Night, which is a directorial debut from Andrew Patterson, and this movie is fucking awesome. It's kind of like a period piece about kind of 50s. I guess it's like fear of aliens and fear of like communism and this. It's almost like an extended Twilight Zone episode basically, and it has all the kind of period trappings of a 50s paranoia based thriller about aliens potentially communicating to us. Essentially, the story is that there are two young teens who intercept a weird sounding radio signal one night while one of them works at the switchboard, the other one works at the radio station. Everyone in the town, or pretty much everyone at the town, is at a high school basketball game, so the town is basically completely empty, and it's them running around this town trying to find out what's going on, and they're getting phone calls from ex-army veterans who are talking about, oh, I've encountered this signal before and it's something up there that's beaming down to us. And honestly, this movie will make the hairs on the back of your arms stand up. It's so creepy, and it's got a wonderful sense of place as well. I think the as I say, the way it captures like the period trappings of the 50s is fantastic, but it elevates itself beyond that with Andrew Patterson's presentation. So admittedly, this is kind of digitally stitched together, but there are a couple of scenes or a couple of shots where you essentially get a go-kart out of a room, and then it literally races across the entire town, goes through the high school gym, goes out one of the top windows of it, and then turns back into a go-kart that goes to the radio station. So it like fully is, and it is stitched together digitally, which I don't care. It's technically impressive whichever way you look at it, but it gives you such a wonderful sense of place, and it reminds me a bit of Close Encounters of I always forget which number it is. Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind or Third Kind, the Spielberg movie. But it's so creepy and it's just, it could just be this kind of like schlocky period thing, but it elevates itself above that. And the two stars, Sierra McCormick and Jake Horowitz, are brilliant in it as well. I cannot recommend this highly enough.
Okay, I might check this out then. It sounds great.
It's on Prime now.
Aliens freak me out, so even if it's not like a horror, I still would be freaked out by it.
Yeah, I mean, I hesitate to call it a horror because it's more this kind of growing sense of dread at what it could be. It's horror in the sense that it is very creepy, but there's not really actually I'm obviously I'm not going to spoil what happens in the movie, but it's not really about something happening. It's just weird signals and scary stories being told in an isolated New Mexico town, and that setting is what makes it creepy. But I mean, you as a fan of stuff that's set in the 50s, I think you would enjoy it, even if alien stuff does kind of creep you out.
Does it sort of have the same feel of like the first act of Signs, maybe?
Yeah, it's very similar to Signs, less of the kind of jump scariness. But that first act in particular, just this kind of foreboding sense of dread, like just this idea, like you intercept this weird radio signal, and there's one particular scene with Sierra McCormick where she's working the switchboard, which, as an aside, I've never seen a switchboard operated before, but it is fucking nuts how those worked. I don't know how you did that back in the day, but she's operating this switchboard and she hears this weird signal, and she's like connecting it to lots of different, a couple of different people in town say, do you know what this is? Do you know what this is? And then eventually it cuts to the radio station where he gets a call saying like, oh yeah, we buried something in the desert, that made this sound, and it was communicating with something, and then there's a pause, and it's like up there, and it's just like, oh. But yeah, Vast of Night, well worth checking out on Amazon Prime if you're in the mood for something quite creepy and brilliantly presented.
Yeah, and it looks like Andrew Patterson, this is his first ever foray into...
Yeah, as a directorial debut, it is. We will watch his career with great interest, because this is as strong a debut as I've seen probably since what was, is it? It's not Jordan Peterson. He's the problematic YouTuber, Jordan Peele, who did Get Out, right? That is probably the strongest directorial debut I've seen since that.
Yeah, well, you still have to watch The Last Black Man in San Francisco. So that's also, but I'd be interested to see this. I mean, he doesn't even have a credit for any like short films or anything. He's just properly blasted onto the scene here. That's great. That's fantastic. This guy, if this is anything to go by, this guy's got a hell of a career ahead of him. So yeah.
What
about the score of it? I'm interested, like, even just this type of film, it's all about the feel, right?
Yeah, it's very the score is very unintrusive. It's very ambient. I never really noticed it. You're certainly not really getting, I don't know, like the Beach Boys playing on a car stereo or something like that. It's a very quiet movie actually. There's a lot of lingering sort of talking head shots while people have long stretches of dialogue or just action where they're doing certain things that just allow you to sit in this really uncomfortable silence. So the score I never really noticed, which I think is probably for the best given what kind of tone this movie is trying to strike.
Okay, awesome.
But yeah, well worth checking out. And then so my second one, this is a rewatch for me, but I'm putting it in here because I love this movie, and that is The Matrix.
Oh, you rewatched it?
I did. I rewatched The Matrix. It's on Amazon Prime, and I was like, you know what? I haven't seen The Matrix for a little while. I'm going to watch it again. And this movie is still absolutely rules. It's even if you remove, I mean, I don't know why you would do this, but even if you remove it from the position it sits in history, where it's one of the most influential and important action movies ever made, it's still brilliant to watch to this day. The kind of blending of the like Hong Kong action cinema and like wuxia influence in like the fights choreography with the vinyl and leather trench coat and the sunglass wearing techno metal thing that it was going for, it became like parodied obviously because this was so popular, but this is kind of where, I mean, well, you could argue it kind of started with Blade and maybe a little bit earlier than that, but this is really where that hit the mainstream, and I still think that stuff is pretty cool. And there are sequences in this movie where, so I don't want to spoil anything, but the sequence where they go to rescue a character and it goes from two characters in a helicopter to one jumping out of a helicopter to catch the one they're rescuing, then the helicopter crashing, Neo having to grab the rope attached to the helicopter while the pilot of the helicopter jumps out. You see the helicopter hit a building. You see VFX we had never seen before up until that point, as the windows of the building like ripple outwards as it hits it, and then the pilot smashes into the camera and cracks it. It's a virtuoso presentation in pretty much every one of the action scenes, and I love this movie.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Iconic is the word. I think it became iconic within a year or two of it coming out. It's like it's every now and then you get, and you would say it's probably an action sci-fi. Like it's not. Yeah. It's interesting looking back on it. It actually won 4 Oscars. Right.
I don't remember it winning Oscars actually. That's interesting. Yeah. What did it win for?
The best film editing. Which is probably the highest brow one they did win, but it's like film editing, best sound, best sound effects editing, and best visual effects. So but it's funny these days, like action films, there's less. I would say that there's less groundbreaking stuff coming out at the minute. I think there is an argument to be made with, like, you talking about Extraction come out, maybe the John Wick stuff. Like
John Wick is the one where people were like, oh, this is different.
Like, I think it's only a matter of time before we get stunt coordinators being an Oscar category, to be honest with you. Stunts are not Oscar category. I don't understand why, but they will eventually be. But
it's I mean, this is...
Watch Tom Cruise win it every year. Like, they won't even give it to a stuntman.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the same thing as Leo DiCaprio winning Best Actor for being the most method actor, which is I don't hate Leo DiCaprio. I just don't think he should have won for The Revenant. I think
he should have won for something else.
Yeah, he should have won for something else. He should have probably won for Shutter Island if I was going to pick something. But
probably should have won for Gilbert Grape all the way back in the day, I would say.
Yeah, I haven't seen Gilbert Grape in a long time actually, so I can't really remember his performance that well.
He was a teenager at the time. He played a boy with special needs. So, but you know, he got nominated that young. Probably when I look at a performance which would elevate him to the level of Oscar, probably that would be the closest one in my opinion. But Shutter Island again is a fantastic one as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I like The Revenant. Like The Revenant's a good movie. I like The Revenant. I like his performance in it, but it's one of those ones where it's like you're giving him this because you know you fucked up.
Yeah.
This is what I like to call the Scent of a Woman Oscar, where they finally gave Al Pacino a best actor Oscar for that.
I know what you mean, but I have thought about it before, and I think I've mentioned it before with Chadwick Boseman. Like I've mentioned it before, like yeah, they are what they are. Like you know
eventually you have to recognize these actors.
Yeah, like,
sometimes
I'm happy.
You grease the wheels a little.
Even if they came out and said, "Listen, we're giving him Leo one for his whole career," I'd be like, "Okay, I'm happy with that."
Yeah, that is true. I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's just I can't. I'm trying to be honest. It's been long enough since The Revenant came out that I can't even remember who I thought should have won it at that point, which probably says a lot about the sanctity of my argument.
Yeah, I can't remember who else was that year, but I will say The Revenant is an example of, for some reason. Shutter Island was another one where I heard Leo was coming out with these films, and I went and I watched. No, I went and got the books for the film Shutter Island and Revenant, and I read them, and then because I read them, I didn't care about seeing the film anymore. Well, I did. I just didn't get around to it, so I didn't see The Revenant for like 3 years after it came out, even though I'd read the book, and I didn't see Shutter Island for like 3 or 4 years after it came out, even though I'd read the book. And both films I really liked. Shutter Island was better than The Revenant, in my opinion, but I don't know. I have a habit of accidentally staving my interest in films by reading the book before it comes out.
Yeah, you just like basically convince yourself that like you know everything that's going to happen, so you have no need to actually watch the movie.
Although, as a little small tangent onto Shutter Island, Shutter Island is, and I will always say this, it is. And I haven't read every book in the world, so let me just proviso that. But
I'm glad you've established that.
Yeah, I've established that. But for me, out of every book I've read in my life, Shutter Island is the best that a director has done to realize a book onto screen. Even how complicated it was. I was reading Shutter Island thinking, how the hell are they going to do this? Well, they did it in that film. So,
yeah, I've not read the book. I probably should, to be honest. I really like that movie. And yeah, I prefer it to The Revenant. I mean, they're not really linked apart from DiCaprio being in it. But I mean, obviously, like it is Scorsese. I think Shutter Island. I'm pretty sure it is.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer Scorsese to Inarritu as a rule when it comes to directors. So which I don't think I'm alone in having that opinion. To be honest,
I would agree. Yep.
But yeah, so The Matrix. If you haven't seen it, it's. To be honest, it's quite simply one of the best science fiction action movies ever made. It's still stunning to this day. Carrie-Anne Moss and Lawrence Fishburne and what's his face, Hugo Weaving are all great in it, and Keanu Reeves obviously as well. And Keanu Reeves, we saw the origin, if you like, of a man who was willing to do a huge amount of work off camera to learn the choreography, learn the stunts, so they could shoot in these kind of Hong Kong style long takes on him that made the fight scenes look amazing. And he would carry that work ethic through into his later career and stuff like John Wick. So when you're looking at John Wick, you really want to go back to The Matrix, because a lot of the people who worked on The Matrix work on the John Wick films, including Chad Stahelski. This is where he met Keanu.
That's cool. Well, grab yourself your least favorite spoon from the drawer and sit down and give it a go. That's what I'll say.
Yes, yeah. Make sure Uri Geller's not in the room. That's a joke that will not work for like 90% of our listeners. Right. Uri Geller claimed to have moved a football during a penalty. I can't remember who it was. I think it was England versus Scotland. He claimed to have moved a football during a penalty shootout between England and Scotland. The man is a charlatan. Anyway.
Well, you never know. He could have. We didn't see.
It's true.
He might have moved it in the direction that it was kicked while it was in the air.
That is true. Yeah. You know. Anyway, right. Okay. Let's have another one of yours.
Okay. So I was gonna say this one to last, but I'm gonna segue into it based on just talking about Scorsese. I finally got around to watching a film that I've been meaning to watch for many, many years. Then Joker came out, and I was like, okay, now I need to actually really go and watch it. And then it still took me a couple of years to watch it, but I finally did.
I love that. So, and just like that, 2 years later, I went and watched it.
I finally got around to it, and that is Scorsese's The King of Comedy.
Now, I've never seen this. This is a big blind spot for me in Scorsese's back catalogue. So you're going to have to guide me through this.
Okay, so basically, you've seen Joker, yeah?
Yes, I have seen Joker, and I've seen Taxi Driver, which I think is the other Scorsese movie that Joker pulls heavily from.
Yeah, I think for Taxi Driver, for me, it's more the world that they're pulling into it. Whereas so basically, just before I get into The King of Comedy, the plot of Joker, if you haven't seen it, is a fella called Arthur Fleck who's obsessed with a late night talk show host. And that eventually leads him. He's also got mental health issues, and that eventually leads him to becoming the Joker. Spoiler, right? Everyone knew that was coming. He's sort of obsessed with Murray Franklin in Joker, who's played by Robert De Niro. Interestingly, while the press tour for Joker was going on, they kept mentioning, like Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix kept mentioning, obviously we're drawing from The King of Comedy. And I was like, geez, they're mentioning this a lot. And having seen the film, if they didn't mention it, everyone would have been talking about how they copied it. It is so similar. It is frighteningly similar.
Yeah.
It is no. It's to the point where it's not even inspired by. It's almost like Todd Phillips watched this film and thought to himself, "What if at the end of this film he turned into the Joker?"
Yeah.
And that was it.
That is kind of. I mean, I can't say how much credence there is to this because I haven't seen it, obviously. But the probably the biggest or the most oft repeated criticism I heard of Joker was that it's like, and I thought Joker was okay. I don't think it was a bad movie. I don't think it was as good as some people said. But that there are it's basically two halves or maybe 2/3 and 1/3 of better movies. Like you are better placed to go and watch The King of Comedy and Taxi Driver than to watch Joker. You'll get more from it. That's what I heard a lot of people say about that movie, and I don't know how true that is based on what you've seen here.
I think for me, having the comic book aspect to it and having him turn into the Joker, and also in Joker they have a whole almost political struggle going on as well. Which maybe is drawing from Taxi Driver, but that is not present within this film. This film is about Robert De Niro, which interestingly, Robert De Niro plays Murray Franklin in Joker.
Yeah.
So he sort of is a role reversal in this one, and he plays a character called Rupert Pupkin, and Rupert Pupkin is a man who is obsessed with a talk show comedian host called Jerry Langford, played by Jerry Lewis. Jerry Lewis, of course, is the Nutty Professor. And in fact, actually, Robert De Niro said to Scorsese, wrote him a letter. And I'm sure Scorsese still got this letter, but before they filmed The King of Comedy, Robert De Niro sent Scorsese a letter saying that he shouldn't have hired Jerry Lewis because he thinks that Jerry Lewis will be too over the top in the role, won't be able to be nuanced, and it would just create a mockery of the film, basically. And you felt like Robert De Niro is so serious, you could tell he was going that. It's almost as if it's like you can imagine, like Joaquin Phoenix. Can you imagine if like Adam Sandler was cast in the role of Murray Franklin? Can you imagine Joaquin Phoenix writing a letter to Todd Phillips saying, "I don't think so,"
Yeah.
But basically, that's what happened. But anyway, Robert De Niro plays Rupert Pupkin, and he wants to be a stand-up comedian, and he is obsessed with Jerry Langford. Now, it's got a really interesting dynamic. It starts off with him actually meeting him and talking to him, and he convinces himself that he's his best mate, and it sort of is it's a trip down into the depths of this man's mind, and he can't accept that he's not his mate until a certain point in the film, and I'm not going to say any more after that, right? But it's sort of a very cynical view of show business, and what it takes to get into show business, and what show business turns you into. Scorsese has been quoted as saying, if you could choose, like when he looks back on this film, he thinks to himself sometimes he shouldn't have made this film. It's a very cynical. It's a very cynical message in this film. Very, very cynical. because the thing is, in Joker, we all go into Joker knowing that he's going to be the bad guy. You know, the Joker is a bad guy, and we empathize him to a certain point, and everyone has a different point in the film where they empathized with Arthur Fleck in Joker. Eventually, everyone, if you empathize with him at the end, okay, fair enough. I don't want to talk to you, but but there's a certain point where everyone loses empathy for him. But with Rupert Pupkin, you realize almost immediately that actually this guy's troubled, and he won't take no for an answer, and it's a different dynamic. And Robert De Niro is absolutely unbelievable in this film. He's like really unsettling and very immature, and also quite terrifying in moments. It's absolutely fantastic. Robert De Niro in this film is probably the best I've seen Robert De Niro, to be honest with you. Like, it's unbelievable.
I mean, you know, I know Robert De Niro is kind of preaching to the choir by saying, hey, that Robert De Niro guy, he's a pretty good actor. Mm-hmm. But I mean, this is the fourth, I believe it's the fourth time he'd been in a Scorsese movie. And up until this point, he'd done Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver, Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull. I can't remember his character's name in Mean Streets, but then this, which is, you know, four pretty different characters.
Yep.
And he like, you know, this is kind of like peak De Niro. He was just knocking them out of the park every single time. And it sounds like this is, you know, a continuation of that form.
You're exactly right. And eventually he did Goodfellas as well in 1990. And he actually had to take a 7-year break, 8 year break from Scorsese after this film, because they had such a rough time making it. It was so cynical, and the character he had to inhibit was, you know, so against what he wanted to be. And it's just, he's just so good in it. Like, it's unlike any De Niro performance I've ever seen, to be honest with you. He's just so nuanced in it. He's so subtle. I just loved it. I might watch it again, actually.
Yeah, I need to see this movie. As I say, it's been, in fact, I think this is on Prime as well, and I've been meaning to watch it for ages, because it is probably my biggest Scorsese blind spot. It's one of the few big movies of his that I've never seen, and by all accounts, it's fantastic. And I love stuff like this that's kind of deconstructing the mythos of celebrity and show business in general, and presenting like a really cynical, grimy underbelly of it. That very much speaks to me, which sounds like what this is.
Yeah, and actually, Robert De Niro's, I'm not going to say too much about this because I don't want to spoil anything, but his wife at the time, Diane Abbott, she's also in it, and she plays his love interest. And if you've seen Joker, you know where the love interest story goes in that film. I'm not going to make a conclusion on this one, but I will say, having seen Joker first, it made for a very interesting viewing of this film, because I was questioning what was real, what wasn't, what's in his head. Because both the character Arthur Fleck and Rupert Pupkin, they have mental health issues, and they at their house they reenact like talk show spots, and like they're always sort of going away into their fantasy land within their mind, and you never quite know. And Scorsese's quoted as saying that he wanted there to be no difference between the fantasy within his mind and the real life, so you're sort of left guessing what's what. But but even the similarities between Joker and this, even down to having like the fake talk show in his apartment and stuff, down to living with his mother. It's all there, you know. It's all very, very similar.
It does kind of beg the question, and again, I can't really weigh in on the answer to this question because I haven't seen one of these movies. But it does sort of beg the question: at what point does homage creep into plagiarizing? I
honestly think they said to themselves when they were making Joker, we have to get Robert De Niro to play Murray Franklin. If we don't, no one will critically praise this film, because if we don't, it's just a carbon copy. But if he's on board, then we can at least talk about how it's inspired. You know, it is so similar.
It just, I mean, maybe it speaks to my own cynicism, but I just feel like wearing your influences on your sleeve does not necessarily excuse you for just cribbing whole cloth from those influences, which it sounds like Joker did with King of Comedy.
Yeah, I've talked much in the past about influences. No, never has anyone made something that wasn't inspired by other things. Everything is inspired. The whole point of making something original is to be inspired by everything that's led up to that moment, or to be inspired by 10, 20 things. This Joker was, anyway, this isn't a review of Joker, but it was inspired by 1 or 2 films, and you can see it. I will also just want to mention before we move off, there's an actress called Sandra Bernhard, and she, by all accounts, seems to not really have done much else with her career of note. But she plays a stalker of Jerry Langford, and she has a dynamic with Rupert Pupkin. Because at the beginning of the film, you're imagining Rupert Pupkin actually is he's an aspiring comedian, and he's going through in legitimate ways. But then all of a sudden, then you meet this stalker character, Marsha, and she's like very much a stalker of him, and very creepy and sort of very controlling, and it's just really well done.
Does she like allow him to feel superior and like take the moral high ground because he's like, I'm not as bad as that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then very quickly, like I'm talking like within the first 10 minutes of the film, you realize they know each other, and you kind of have a whole different take on the film, because it's like, hang on a minute, this is like the little stalkers group, you know what I mean? Like
club of stalkers.
The club, yeah, it's really interesting. I do really recommend it.
That's awesome. Yeah, as I say, it's very much on my list, and it's Martin Scorsese. I don't think he makes bad movies, so I think I'm pretty safe in following that recommendation.
Yeah, I will just say, sorry, before you go on, because I've talked about so much of the Joker stuff. I think this will make you laugh. There's a certain point in the film where he goes to do a comedy gig, right? And before he goes on, he goes to the guy, "Call me the king."
Oh, okay.
Because obviously in Joker, he says, "Call me Joker." Literally, you watch this film, you're going to think Todd Phillips just watched it and went, what if he was Joker at the end?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have made that connection and asked that very same question of Todd Phillips, to be honest. Right, okay. Well, so I think we'll move on from Scorsese there. I'll do a couple now. I've got 2 that naturally sit quite naturally next to each other. Sure,
that makes sense to me.
It's not redundant to say that. So, talking about Disney Plus, I signed up for it. This is not a plug for Disney Plus, although Disney, if you're listening,
listen, until they've got a full-on 100% monopoly, I'll support them. I don't support full monopolies, so
I'll support them until they fuck up either the X-Men or the Aliens series. If they do that, I'm out.
I was interested to find out, actually, not talking about politics from last week, but just as a quick little aside here, it's interesting the spirit of the Disney films they put out throughout the world. But then I found out recently a load of Disney had. I got the news through. Disney has pulled out of pulled their donations from all of the Republicans who voted to delegitimize the election, and I thought to myself, Disney is donating to the Republicans?
Yeah. Listen, I'm not going to touch this. I'm just going to say I'm not that surprised that big businesses are siding with a certain aspect.
You mean you don't actually mean what Mickey Mouse says? Anyway,
Mickey Mouse is the ultimate capitalist. Anyway, I watched Mulan 2020 because I was going through 2020 films that I hadn't seen. What did you think of it? Hit me with your opinion before I go into it.
Hit me with my best shot.
Yeah.
First half an hour, I thought it was going to be a mockery of the original. It probably still is, but I will say it grew on me as I watched it.
Okay.
I think that by the end of it, probably I'm thinking it came out as I enjoyed watching it. Yeah, that's what I feel. It grew on me.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had probably the opposite reaction. I really wanted to like this movie because I think the production design and the costumes and the use of color are beautiful. It's very pretty.
Factor. It's got the
It does. Factor. Yeah, I mean, it's this warm presentation that's just very pretty to look at. Absolutely the Weewater Zoo factor. And I think capturing the world was Nicky Caro's first concern. I think in the direction of this, they wanted to make sure they did the China they were depicting justice, and I think to be fair, I think they did do that. But I do like some of the live action Disney remakes. We watched. I'm not going to talk about it here, but we watched the Cinderella remake, the Kenneth Branagh one, recently. That's a very good remake. I think some of the others are okay. it just makes me ask why. Like they took out pretty much all the comedy, all of the music. And it just means the movie doesn't really work. It just feels really dry. I feel like there's no characters that I care about or kind of can empathize with. And it's a shame because, the cast of this movie is great. You've got Donnie Yen, you've got Jet Li, who it's great to see Jet Li. You've got Jason Scott Lee, Ty Ma from, well, he's in loads of stuff, but, he's in Arrival. And there's loads of really, really good, I guess, really good martial artists in this movie, rather than necessarily really good actors.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that they're in something so dry. And the real kicker for me is that some of the fight scenes I found to be really, really good, where they actually let people like Donnie Yen just be good martial artists because they are, and they shot it in a wide shot, or they don't have to shoot it in a wide shot, but they let each shot breathe to show his amazing work. That really worked for me, but a lot of the time it was really kind of frenetic, and it's like the editor couldn't resist, or maybe the Nicky Caro couldn't resist cutting around during the fight sequences, and it just made it really disorienting and robbed those fight sequences of a lot of their wow factor. So I think it really drags in the middle, but it does look very nice. Hard to recommend it though. I find.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I think one thing that sort of these Disney remakes are falling flat on is, and maybe the Beauty and the Beast was more positive in this way because what's her name? Emma Watson actually sort of agreed to do it on certain terms that they would put into the character. I think that this suffers because the message they're telling was very relevant in the 90s when Mulan first came out. Still obviously is relevant, but the political climate has moved on, and I think that it takes away, I don't know, to me, I didn't get the same sense from this film of, woman empowerment. I didn't get that sense from this. Maybe it's just because I'm not a young impressionable child anymore, and like the first one had that impression on me, and I sort of, that taught me a lesson. You know what I mean? Maybe that's why I didn't get it from this. Maybe young boys and young girls are getting that message when they watch this, but it wasn't there for me. I think the biggest crying shame of this whole thing was if you can have a literal witch or whatever the woman was, right? Yeah. Why can't you have Mushu?
Yeah, I mean, that is the real shame of this. Is I think they felt like they needed to get away from the music and the comedy and replace it with the kind of wuxia fantasy elements, which I kind of get, but they just don't replace it with enough. So you are left with this gaping hole where you're dying. The movie is like calling out for some proper comedic relief, and there's just nothing there. The role that Eddie Murphy filled in the original, that would be perfect here, but there just isn't that much comedy. It's very dry as a result, and a lot of the plot lines feel quite half baked to me. So this witch who serves the Mongolian horde as a kind of analog to Mulan, this woman who has like this shadowy reflection of Mulan, who's gone a different route but is also a woman seeking to break away from the hole that society wants her to fit into. There's not a lot of time spent with that character, so it just feels a bit underbaked to me.
She turns just because Mulan's a woman.
Yeah,
I didn't like that. Why? What is this? Like sympathy? Like Mulan is doing a great job here. We don't need this other woman here. I mean, I didn't. I thought the aesthetic of the character was cool. A lot of it's really great to look at, and it's not an unsalvageable film. As I say, it is really nice to look at. Donnie Yen, Jet Li, and Jason Scott Lee, Brandon Scott Lee. I'm gonna hold on. Jason Scott Lee, who did play Bruce Lee in Dragon, a Bruce Lee story. Like, so you've got I guess you could say like kind of three generations of very, very prominent martial artists here that all do some really cool stuff. Jet Li less so because he's quite unwell, but still it's great to see him. Well, I did like how they went into sort of House of Fly and Dagger style, running up the wall. And I did like the little moments like that.
Yeah, that's that wuxia influence, which I think was smart. I think it's cool to see that. You might like this. This is perfect fodder for you to implement a style like that.
Yeah.
It's just a shame that the presentation in the fight scenes isn't better. But it's not. It's not awful either. But
Yeah.
given my next movie, it's hard to recommend that one. And my next movie is something I had never seen before, funnily enough, and that is Mulan from 1998. I figured, you know what? I've watched the 2021. I should probably go and watch the 1998 one.
You had never seen it?
No, I'd see. I had gotten out of Disney around about. I'm going to say Tarzan. I think that was shortly before Mulan. I was
Collins' masterpiece.
Yeah. I like Phil Collins, right? There will be no bad mouthing of Phil Collins on this podcast.
Actually, no, I love the music in Tarzan. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I think I saw Tarzan. I don't really remember what I thought of it, but I'm probably about 13, and I was sort of getting out of Disney movies at that point. So I never saw Mulan, or I think Mulan came out around about the time that Disney was getting into that straight-to-video sequel period as well. So I assumed that Mulan was terrible. And this is the first time that I'd seen it. And I have to say, it's not my favorite Disney movie. I think, obviously, I have no nostalgia for it. So there's nothing kind of carrying me to enjoying it. I still think it was good, though. I enjoyed it. Eddie Murphy is a great comic relief. The music is fantastic. And it does share that use of color and really strong sense of style with the 2020 remake. It's a very kind of bright and joyous film, which I really enjoyed. The one thing I probably would criticize about it is that they had BD Wong in the cast. I can't remember the name of the sort of male. He's not co-lead. I think it's Chang, but BD Wong, obviously, guy from Jurassic Park, is a Tony-winning Broadway actor, and they dubbed his singing part with fucking Donny Osmond, which is a bit like, oh, cool. Thanks, guys. just what Disney movies needed was Donny Osmond singing the part. Maybe there was a reason for that, but I feel like if you've got a Tony Award-winning Broadway actor in your movie, maybe let them sing the song, especially if they are Asian and playing an Asian character. Maybe let them sing the part rather than getting Donny Osmond to do it.
That's just Disney really panicking that it's not going to be a financial success and thinking they need a big name.
Big name.
Get Donny in.
Someone get me Donny Osmond.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Disney execs smoking.
He was the closest to them, but yeah. The original Mulan is actually probably Emma's favorite Disney film. When Emma, after we got married, she cut her hair all off and then donated it to the Little Princess Trust to make wigs for children with cancer, and we made a sort of a piss take version of whenever the montage in Mulan where she cuts her hair. We made a piss take version of that, of Emma doing that. Sent it to the Little Princess Trust because they've got a load of videos on their website of like little kids getting their hair cut to donate it. So we were like, screw it. We made this montage, put a lot of effort into it, sent it there, never heard back. It was funny as well. At the very end of the video, I did this thing where Emma was like packaging up her hair to send away, and it went. I had the music going. Let's get down to business to defeat, and then I went concert.
The very like pronounced Northern Irish accent in there. It really sells that as a joke, I think.
Probably why they didn't get back. Let's be honest, but.
I would immediately get back to someone if they sent me that. I'd be like, can you make more video packages like this for us, please? This is perfect.
Yeah. Well, Ema said to me the other day, actually, I might donate my hair once every 10 years. I was like, that's a good idea. She goes, do you want to make another video when I do it next time? Like, well, this time we'll be like 35 or whatever. I was like, yes, we do. And Ema said, why don't we just make the same montage from Mulan every time? And I was like, no, we got to find another one. I think I can't remember what. My idea was to do the montage in dark where Marta cuts her hair, but yeah,
perfect.
But there we go. So Mulan, original cartoon. I'm gonna honestly tell you, I didn't watch it when I was a kid. I watched it when I was maybe 17, 18 when I first met Emma. It was one of her favorite Disney film. I really enjoy it. I think the music's great. Even though I like Christina Aguilera, I don't agree with Disney pop versions. Let's go with the original. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, I think it's definitely better. It is 100% better, and it is good. I think I still would put something like Beauty and the Beast in a tier above it. I think that's probably my favorite if I was forced to pick.
Oh, really?
But yeah, I'd probably say Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin.
Well,
I'm trying to think.
Aladdin is that Robin Williams vehicle? Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. I tell you what, actually, this is completely unrelated, but I've been watching someone play. Have you ever heard of the video game Kingdom Hearts?
Yeah.
So that's like Disney Final Fantasy crossover, to get the genie in that is played by the guy who played the genie in the sequel to Aladdin, Dan Castellaneta, who is also the voice of Homer Simpson. And I tell you what, I love me some Dan Castellaneta, but he ain't no Robin Williams.
No, I agree. I actually watched Return of Jafar or whatever it was called the other day with my son, and it just wasn't the same.
It's just, I mean, and he's trying. I feel like the direction isn't helping him because the people who are directing him are being like, do Robin Williams, do that. Yeah. Be Robin Williams. And it's like, you just can't. You can't direct someone to do that.
Yeah, just also to go on the record, you said Beauty and the Beast is probably your favorite Disney. I think if I had to choose, I'd probably say 101 Dalmatians.
See, I do. This is another one that we watched that I wasn't going to include in this. We watched the Rescuers, and I don't.
Rescuers.
Yeah, I know. It was just we were going through and we're like, I haven't seen the Rescuers for a long time, and it's that kind of 60s and 70s period. I watched all of it. I don't really have any love for any of those. Like 101 Dalmatians, I don't know if I'd watch that again. Not because it was bad, just because it's like, I don't know. I couldn't really put my finger on exactly why they don't connect with me as well.
I just love the experimental style of like the watercolor backgrounds, and
There was definitely a lot. I feel like by 89, I think 89, 88, like whenever Little Mermaid came out, Disney had that like 10-year stretch where like, right, we've got our style, we can experiment within these parameters. So their art style would differ slightly, and obviously with Beauty and the Beast, they experimented with using like CGI backgrounds with 2D animation. But there was a kind of similar aesthetic, whereas in the 60s and 70s, they were just throwing anything out there. Like, what if we do this one in all watercolor, or what if we rotoscope this one? And
they were properly flagging, and they were trying to find a new thing that would hit. And some of them worked, in my opinion. Like the 101 Dalmatians to me does work. Yeah. But as you say, like I watched The Rescuers for the first time about a week or two ago, and I'll tell you, that was a strange film.
Yeah, it is a weird movie. It is good, but it is weird.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to watching The Rescuers Down Under. Which made me love golden eagles as an animal.
Yeah, you're in. They've got you. All right.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's Mulan. So why don't you give us one of your ones now?
Okay. So my third one that I watched this week was 1966's Django, the spaghetti western.
Mate, I've never seen this either. I've almost watched it several times, but I do love a spaghetti western.
Yeah, so it's proper spaghetti western.
Yeah.
Originally Italian, dubbed over. Franco Nero. This was his proper big breakout role. He became a icon. And actually, it's funny. After this film came out, this was a huge film in Europe, as well as in America, but I think in Europe, especially in Germany, I read. But apparently after this came out, a load of spaghetti westerns, even though they had nothing to do with this film and had no one called Django in it, started being called like Django Goes West, Django that.
Oh yeah.
And like everything was just called Django because they were trying to get the momentum off this film, which I think is hilarious because Quentin Tarantino did that as an homage to that time when he made Django Unchained. And I just 100% know he called the character Django and said Django Unchained because he was making a reference to the fact that every film was called Django something.
Yeah.
Which is great. But so this is nothing to do with Django Unchained. It does share, like Quentin Tarantino in Django Unchained did use the opening theme. It goes Django, like sort of ha. Yeah. But they used that theme, and that's pretty much. There are similarities in other regards, but it's a great spaghetti western.
Yeah,
lots of real gritty, lots of killing. I think the body count is close to 200 in this film.
Yeah, well, I mean, it inspired. I know this by its reputation, but Django's. I think it's the ending where he like gets on a mounted machine gun and just absolutely wrecks people.
That's not the ending, actually.
Oh, is that not the end?
That's very close at the start, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, but I mean, scenes like that directly inspired scenes like the end of The Wild Bunch, which came out 3 years after this. So it was. spaghetti westerns were very influential, despite not being perhaps being a little bit lower budget to look at. And yeah, I think the only thing that talking about Django Unchained that it actually carries over from this is that is it Franco Nero? You said the
He's
lead.
in it, yeah.
He does turn up briefly in Django Unchained, which is fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love movies like this. There's a if we have any fans of kind of Italian cinema or maybe some Italian listeners, maybe they could correct me, but there feels like there's a very clear similarity between spaghetti westerns and the Italian horror of like the 60s through to the 80s of giallo, in that it's all very, very blood splattered and cheesy, and I love all of it. It's so, and I should have seen this movie by now, to be honest.
That's the thing about it, is that there's a lot of blood in this film. But also, what's hilarious to me, and it's just the low budget nature of it, when he's using the Gatling gun, and when they're shooting people are just like throwing themselves on the ground. There's no blood spatter. There's nothing like that. They're just throwing. There's no bullet coming out the gun. There's no muzzle flash. There's like they just fall to the ground when he's using the. There's muzzle flash when he's using the, what do you call it, the Gatling gun.
Yeah.
But they're all just falling on the floor, and the hilarious thing is, the bullets are not moving into the gun. Like there's the same amount of bullets hanging out of that gun when he's finished as when they're starting.
Oh yeah, like they're not concerned about stuff like that.
It's just like kids playing in the garden. That's what it's like. But so basically,
you do what you can with what you got.
Yeah. So it's also just the plot of it is, it's just like, out of towner stranger comes into the town. This one's a bit interesting because he's dragging a coffin behind him. You don't know sort of who's in the coffin or what's going on there. And he becomes embroiled in a bit of feud between Southern racists and a band of Mexican revolutionaries. And it's just a great watch. I will say as well, it's directed by Sergio Corbucci. Now, Sergio Leone obviously is the big famous one from the Dollars trilogy, but Sergio Corbucci was a big director of his time as well. And I love... I've never seen a Corbucci film before this one. But I knew who he was because in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Tarantino's recent film, whenever Rick Dalton, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, goes over to Italy for a bit to film some films, he's like he films with Sergio Corbucci. This is one of the directors that the character of Rick Dalton worked with. Just really good fun. Good Sunday afternoon viewing.
I think this is one of the numerous based purely on the plot line, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is one of the numerous spaghetti westerns that essentially just took the plot of Yojimbo, the Akira Kurosawa movie. Like, yeah, that's cool. We're just going to do that. Like a lone warrior rolls into town and finds two warring factions and basically plays them against each other and ends up killing a bunch of people.
That's exactly right. I think the Dollars trilogy basically heavily took that.
Oh yeah. Like A Fistful of Dollars is literally just Yojimbo. I think I have a feeling Akira Kurosawa spent a long time trying to sue Sergio Leone for that, because it is literally the same story. But I mean, we got some good movies out of it, and Akira Kurosawa ended up okay as well. So like we're fine.
I need to watch more samurai films, to be honest with you, because I love westerns. Yeah. So I will love Samurai too. So I need to watch more.
Yojimbo is a great movie to start with because it's very simple. If you like A Fistful of Dollars or Django, it's literally the same story, except it's maybe a little bit. There's a little bit more craft to the presentation because Akira Kurosawa was a master of his craft, and Toshiro Mifune is a badass. The guy who plays the eponymous hero in that one. But I will check this out. I've been meaning to for ages, and it's always good fun seeing
it's quite short too. It's only 90 minutes. So.
Cool. Okay. Well, so we'll go from that one to, unfortunately, a not great movie. It's the first movie of 2021 that I've seen, and this is Outside the Wire. It released on Netflix on the 15th of January, I believe. I think that was an international release, starring Anthony Mackie, Damson Idris, who I've not actually seen in anything before this, Emily Beecham, and Michael Kelly. Basically, the central conceit is that it's a drone pilot is handpicked by this experimental android super soldier to accompany him outside the wire because he fires when ordered not to, and ends up killing 2 Marines. He saves a bunch of other Marines' lives, but he kills some other people. So he's sent on this kind of correctional course, and he is handpicked by this android super soldier to accompany him outside the wire into the Ukraine, where there is a revolution ongoing. Obviously, that is actually true. This is set, I think I don't know if they ever say a date, but it's kind of loosely set a little bit in the future, I think. And essentially they are trying to stop a terrorist from seizing control of the former Soviet nuclear arsenal in the eastern Ukraine. It's not it's never really that clear. So there's a couple of problems with this movie. The first one is that this conceit of this drone pilot being specifically picked by an android super soldier to accompany him outside the wire to stop a terrorist plot always feels very tenuous, and it is eventually explained, but it takes a massive kind of expository period to actually get there.
Yeah,
and it's not the end of the world to not really understand what I kind of understand, like the reasoning for the plot. If if like the themes of your movie are working okay and the other aspects of it are carrying their weight, but unfortunately the sort of prominent metaphor in this movie of a human being taught the cost of our increasingly detached and automated method of waging war by a robot is kind of frequently so on the nose that it feels very contrived. I was kind of expecting Anthony Mackie who plays the android super soldier, to turn around at some point and be like, you see, man is the real monster at various points in this. And it was just like, and it's hard to get past that. It's very hard to get on board with a particularly contrived plot because the movie is hammering its metaphors so heavily.
It's like the subplot in The Last Jedi. It's like, war's bad. Yeah, we're watching Star Wars.
Yeah, and it's not a metaphor that I disagree with, but there's no subtlety to how it's employed. It does eventually get away from it, but it's very heavy-handed. Michael Kelly does, let's talk about briefly some cool things in this. Michael Kelly does briefly show up, who was in, I only really know him from Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead remake. He always seems to play a kind of disgruntled badass with a heart of gold in literally everything I ever see him in, and he basically does play that in Outside the Wire as well. So he's a bright spark. Unfortunately, he doesn't get that much time. The main meat of the plot is taken up by Damson Idris and Anthony Mackie's characters, and I never really bought the chemistry between them. They felt like they were kind of back and forth between liking and hating each other, just because the plot wanted them to be, rather than because there was any conceivable reason for them to feel that way. And Idris's character arc is a little messy, to be honest. The pacing is all over the place, and there are some characters who get basically no time to develop or have any kind of arc before they're either killed or just removed from the story. So it just ends up with a bunch of their contributions feeling quite hollow and cheap, to be honest.
Speaking of the characters who don't get a light to shine, I want to know how Emily Beecham did in this. I'm keeping an eye on Emily Beecham because she has been the first person cast in the upcoming TV series 1899. That's why I'm keeping an eye on her.
Yeah, no, she is good in it, but yeah, she is a classic. Her and Michael Kelly, and you're gonna hate me for saying this, but Pilo Asbach, shitty Jack Sparrow from Game of Thrones, all three of those actors are very good, and they get barely any time in this at all. It's all the focus is on the two co-leads, unfortunately. So Emily Beecham is good with what she gets, but she doesn't get much. Okay. I will say, for like some good things about it, the action sequences for the most part are very good, although some of the editing really rubbed me the wrong way. There were a couple of moments where I felt like kind of literally disoriented with how much they were cutting. And the sci-fi concepts are very cool. So they introduced this idea of like mobile kind of mechanized soldiers called GUMPS, which is a hilarious acronym for I don't know if they ever explain what it stands for, but they were just like, get the GUMPS, and like it's so funny. That's funny. But they're very well designed. There are a couple of really cool action sequences between Russian, and the way this movie presents the conflict, it feels like we've gone back to like a Cold War era movie.
But it's in the near future.
It is in the near future, yeah. Between like the US and the Russian Gumps, but I feel I wanted more of them, to be honest. Like I wanted this is maybe me wanting a bit more Rogue One in my Outside the Wire, but this movie was crying out for a wisecracking Gump to be to be on the team, just following them around, being like ha 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 ha.
I mean, even Interstellar had the huge cuboids.
Yeah, I mean, Tars was the star of Interstellar.
Come on, Tars.
Yeah, I was big into Tars, and I would have loved a wisecracking Gump here. It's not a great movie, unfortunately. Although I will say this for it as well: it ends as all good movies should, with a fight atop a nuclear missile. So it has that going for it at the very least.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can get on board with that 100%.
Yeah, but
I'll probably not race to see this one, Konrad.
No, it's not your kind of movie, I would say, in the first place, and it's not a great one of these, unfortunately.
Fair enough. All right. Well, how many you got left? You got one left?
I've got one left. So you give me yours, and then how many have you got left?
I'll give you mine. You give me yours. Yeah, I got one left.
Let's do it.
Okay, so my last one is the 2007 David Schwimmer directed film, Run, Fat Boy, Run.
Oh, did David Schwimmer direct this?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
I did not know that. Bloody hell. Okay, fine.
It's his directorial debut. And as you know, he's clearly a man who's got a lot of money and was just having a bit of fun. He directed one other feature film, I think, and then he sort of dipped his toes back into acting here and there. He's sort of just doing what he wants.
Yeah, I mean, he's got that Friends money. He doesn't care.
Yeah, so apparently originally this was going to be set in Los Angeles, but whenever UK producers got it, it came over here. And I don't know how this happened, but through going from Los Angeles, being set in Los Angeles, to being set in London, somehow it turned into a Richard Curtis knockoff, you know?
Yeah, that is exactly what it's trying to do as well.
Yeah, it's like it's somehow turned into a Richard Curtis knockoff. I don't know how that happened because the script already existed before they went to the UK. But anyway, so basically it's about a fella played by Simon Pegg called Dennis. And he, at the very beginning of the film, hilariously runs away from his commitment to marry Thandie Newton. Thandie Newton's a really interesting actress because she's I think did she get nominated for an Oscar for playing Condoleezza Rice? I mean, she might even have won. Did she win? She might have won, but anyway.
I don't. Yeah, I need to look that up now. I don't remember. The main thing I remember her from is Westworld, to be honest. Which is
she's very good in Westworld. But yeah. So basically, she's been nominated for a couple of Golden Globes, actually, not for thing. But she's also in an episode of a series of Line of Duty, which is a UK crime show, which is very, very good. But basically, Dennis he runs away from Thandie Newton's character Libby, who's pregnant on their wedding day, right?
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. He runs away, and then he sort of 5 years later, he's a security guard, down and out security guard, a little bit overweight, and wouldn't you know, Libby's got this new boyfriend, Hank Azaria.
He's a real piece of shit in this movie.
Yeah. There's a moment where, and sort of like, Dennis wants to get back with Thandie Newton, but he sort of won't even admit that to himself, and he gets very jealous of this new fellow Wyatt, and Wyatt is like a stockbroker, you know, he's like a venture capitalist or whatever he's doing. I don't know what he's doing. He's something in Canary Wharf in London anyway. And he's like a lot of money. He's got muscles to spare. He's like, you know,
he puts talcum powder on his balls in Simon Pegg's face,
and in fact, I actually
always stood out to me.
Yeah, I actually read that in that scene, Hank Azaria couldn't get the little sock to stay on his bits, so he actually just did it without a sock on, and they didn't tell Simon Pegg.
I'm sure Simon Pegg appreciated that.
So the reactions in the film are actually genuine, but yeah. So basically, gets up like any UK comedy, which is weird. I know it's directed by David Schwimmer, but anyway, it sort of becomes this thing where everything hinges on like a race or like something, you know. So basically, he decides he's going to
still down. So this is him proving his worth to Thandie Newton. He's
proving his worth. Hank Azaria runs marathons, and he says, well, you know, you want to be with him? Well, I'm going to run the marathon too. And then the whole thing's like it's Richard Curtis to a T, but not as good. Like even the bit before, like when I'm not going to spoil anything, but they're late to the race at the end, and they need to like to like high paced music, like fast paced music, have to run out of their house in the morning, get in a cab, go across London. Like, it's so Richard Curtis. It's
it's really weird actually, because you're absolutely right, but it's like directed by David Schwimmer, and it's written by Michael Ian Black, who I think wrote Wet Hot American Summer. So it's like a very, very like American production team behind the camera.
It's really strange.
But they are very much aping that Richard Curtis rom-com style.
Yeah.
The main thing I remember about this, to be honest, was Dylan Moran being his friend, which I'm always a big fan of.
Dylan Moran is funny. Ema made a comment while I was watching this, and she said, "Why does Dylan Moran always get put in a leather jacket?" Like,
it's the fault of Bernard Black. Like Black Books meant that he always has to wear black, and obviously leather is normally black. So
yeah, but so Dylan Moran plays sort of the comedy foil to Simon Pegg's straight man, but it doesn't really work in the same way as like the Nick Frost relationship from the Cornetto trilogy, and it's one of those weird in between films for Simon Pegg, where he's not quite the straight man, not quite the funny man, and it really suffers because the dynamic of a duo isn't there.
And the writing isn't there either, which is funny for Michael Ian Black, because he's normally a very good writer. But I felt, from what I remember of this movie, I don't remember a lot of the jokes landing.
Yeah, no, it doesn't, and it's just Simon Pegg. I do like Simon Pegg, and he's done a lot of really good stuff in his career. But whenever he does comedy, he needs a strong. He's always in that duo. It's always in the double act that are the best Simon Pegg comedies. And even in like At World's End, At World's End was different than Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead. In Shaun of the Dead, he was very much a straight man. A couple of one-liners here and there, but very much straight man to Nick Frost's funny man. Whereas in At World's End, they switched the roles. Simon Pegg became the funny man. Nick Frost became the straight man. In this, he's sort of in between, and it doesn't really land for me.
Yeah, neither one nor the other. I haven't seen this movie for a while. I remember liking it at the time, it was
enjoyable. It was enjoyable, but it wasn't. We talked about Notting Hill a few weeks ago. It's not at the same level.
It's not at that level,
but it's trying to be that.
Yeah. I think this is probably similarly to not to go back to it again, but Joker. It's kind of it wears its influences so clearly on its sleeve that it's very hard not to compare it to those movies, which unfortunately are better than it for the most part.
Yeah, and it also has one of the tropes which I dislike in films most. There's a few tropes I dislike, but this one is very on the nose. He's a single parent who's jealous of the new boyfriend. That's one trope. That's okay. That's all right. We can deal with that. About 3/4 of the way into the film, the thing that gives him the drive to go and do the thing that he needs to better himself is his child just being like, "Listen, you need to do this." No, the child being like, I shouldn't be like this, should I, Dad?" And then the dad being like, "Hang on a minute. I'm like that still," and realizing you're still like your child and you need to grow up to be a mentor for them. Like, it's just so on the nose when the child explains to the parent. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
it can work, but it needs, you have to earn that kind of schmaltz, and this movie absolutely doesn't.
No. But again, as I say, enjoyable watch. I wouldn't rush out the door to recommend it, but if you manage to see it, it's good fun.
Yeah, not a bad movie. Okay, right, and my last one. I love this guy's documentaries. I've seen all of them, and this is the most recent one that he's made. This is Asif Kapadia. I'm not actually sure how you pronounce it. His documentary on Diego Maradona from 2019. So he has now done 3 feature-length documentaries. The first one was on Ayrton. So he did one on Ayrton Senna back in 2014, I believe. Then one on Amy Winehouse in 2016, and then this one. And it put me in mind of, maybe it's just because I watched it recently, but Michael Jordan's The Last Dance series on Netflix,
which was good.
Where it was really good. It was a bit of a puff piece for MJ, but
I didn't like. Let's put it this way: you knew it was because it stopped whenever he got bad. I don't know why they didn't continue on to the Wizards story.
Well, I mean, he was okay on the Wizards. Like, he wasn't that bad. Like, by his standards, he was.
I know, but like, he wasn't winning championships. Like.
No, but with The Last Dance, as with this, it leaves me, the main feeling I get watching these movies or these documentaries is a sense of gratitude and to be honest, like a sense of I almost like disbelieving that so much of this footage not only exists but is preserved so well. Asif Kapadia has this way of sort of conjuring up this documentary footage that seemingly shouldn't exist, given how long ago a lot of these events were filmed, and yet he's able to find them, and then has a very, very kind of soft touch with how he puts the footage together so as not to make his point that he's driving towards overly obvious. And I think that's always, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with documentary as a genre, because a lot of the time I feel like it's one of the most emotionally exploitative genres, like fundamentally 100%. Manipulative. Yeah, not exploitative, but manipulative, because it's like that based on a true story thing, but carried to its logical conclusion, where you can essentially order all of this footage and into any order you wish, and present whichever kind of story you want to. But I think Asif Kapadia is very good about. Obviously, there are narratives, there are arcs that he wants to explore. But it's never really ham-fisted, and I think that's really refreshing. And this is, talking about Diego Maradona. This is just a wonderful profile of a troubled, unique, but phenomenally gifted man, and it's there is some creative license taken with this, but I think overall it's pretty even-handed, and it's a really thoroughly entertaining documentary, even if you're not into football. Much like I'm sort of very, very casual F1 fan. I loved Senna. Amy Winehouse, I was a bigger fan of, but that is also very, very interesting. And he just has such a great eye for subjects that he wishes to depict. And this is another fantastic documentary from him.
I'm really looking forward to seeing it. Now, both of those other documentaries he's made are ones that I've always made. It's got to a point now with this documentary maker I've been into. As soon as Senna came out, I wanted to see it. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Amy came out and I went, geez, I really have to get around to seeing Senna and Amy now. And now there's 3 of them. I need to hurry up and get on this. Otherwise, it's going to end up and he's going to have 10 of them to watch,
Yeah, like he's... I don't know how he does it. Like he is so consistent with how good these documentaries are, and it is hard to win me round to a documentary, because, as I say, I can see the strings a lot of the time with the filmmakers when it comes to documentary, and it annoys me. But this is another fantastic entry in his catalogue, and I recommend this, and I really recommend Amy and Senna as well. They're all fantastic, even if you're not into the sports. It's just that very, very interesting profiles of interesting people.
Oh yeah, no, I will. F1 is, again, I'm very casual in the same way as you. Like my dad would have watched it growing up, so I sort of have a knowledge of it to a certain extent. But so it'll be really interesting to give it a go as well. But yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll check that out. But yeah, I think that's, unless you had any more that you wanted to mention. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm gonna say one thing this week, because I put this down as a little note for our listeners. This isn't technically a movie, but if you're in the mood for a good television show, I watched The Queen's Gambit as well in the last week, and that is a great series.
I really want to watch that. Watch that. Yeah.
Oh, it's essentially. Like, if you take out Anya Taylor-Joy delivering another phenomenal performance and beautiful production, fantastic presentation in the camera work and the editing, it's essentially Rocky IV, but about chess. And that, I am very much into that.
Well, currently I'm watching Mindhunter. No, sorry, not Mindhunter. Biohackers. I don't know where Mindhunter came from. I've seen Mindhunter. It's very good. But Biohackers, which is a German, college show about bioengineering. But the reason why I chose it, and I might watch The Queen's Gambit next, but the reason I chose Biohackers is because I've started watching an episode a day while I'm on the bike, and nice. They're 45 minutes each, and I'm not ready to commit to an hour every day yet. That's soon for me. But all these Netflix shows are an hour long each, and it's hard to do.
So some of the episodes of The Queen's Gambit are like an hour 10 as well. It's pretty up and down. So yeah, you've got to work your way up to that.
Yeah, I'll work my way up, but I am going to watch it. It seems really good.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think that's going to just about do it for us this week here on the Best Movie Podcast Ever. So really, we're left with one simple question to ask and answer, and that is, Anthony, what is your favorite movie?
Only one answer this week, and that is The King of Comedy. What about you, Konrad?
It's a great shout. Yeah. My favorite movie is The Matrix. Thank you for joining us this week on the Best Movie Podcast Ever. Please check us out next week where we're doing another one of these movie diaries. Thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. You can find links to their stuff down in the description below. And yeah, sub to us on YouTube, podcasting apps. We're at the Culture Cave or the Best Movie Podcast Ever. Give us a like, join in the conversation, share it with your friends, and we will see you same time, same place next week.